Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, everybody, let's get going. Couple of items just on that prior conversation. I was speaking to the lady about the HELOC, home equity line of credit against a house. What do you do? How can you check on it? Number one, I mentioned in the very beginning of the presentations in my introduction that you have identitytheft.gov as a website. You can get free credit reports there all the time. It will give you the link over to annualcreditreport.gov, I believe it is, or annualcreditreport.com. Either way, start off at identitytheft.gov. And there, when you get your credit report, of course, you can monitor and see any lines of credit, everything else you have there. But when you're talking about a home and you have all that equity lined up in it, et cetera, the only way that I am truly aware that you can check on that, and as she informed me, is the Kern County tax assessor is right upstairs. You could walk into their office and ask them, are there any liens filed against my house? Because the perpetrators may be filing a lien against the house, and it's not linked to your social security number or something that's going to show on a credit report or things of that nature. So that's one option. The other thing I wanted to state, we were talking about the phone calls. Well, Joe and the prior speakers were, when you go to that website, identitytheft.gov, or the Federal Trade Commission, again, they are the federal agency that handles that, there is a do not call registry, but it is limited. I'm registered on it. I go back, I re-register my phone number. I don't want to change my phone number. It does limit some of the calls, but not all of them. These scammers come up with all these different phone numbers. They still come in. So take all the other steps that the prior members were speaking about, let it go to voicemail, take all those other actions. So for our next section, we're going to talk about banking, cybersecurity, how to protect your money, your financial accounts, and we'll start with the panel. I'll leave it open for anyone who wants to kick it off. What are the most common ways that scammers are gaining access to people's bank accounts? Convincing them to move money themselves. What features should you have? All those different items, protecting your money and financial accounts. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so this will be a little bit of a recurring theme from earlier, but the biggest one is use multi-factor authentication, and preferably use a authenticator app, such as Microsoft or Google, that will publish a code that expires every 30 seconds. Those are the safest ways to protect your credentials. Never share your credentials with anybody. Make sure all of your applications are up to date with all the patching and software updates. Don't ignore your software updates on your phone. Those are actually important, and they're usually heavily security based as far as what the updates are. So those are the basics. Don't respond to text messages. If someone calls claiming to trying to help you, hang up and call the official number for the institution that is attempting to help you, and you'll likely find out they never tried to contact you. I would also say I'm well aware of the California privacy on the delete, remove it. Now, that is great because it helps the legitimate businesses that are data aggregators and selling that information. I would also tell you, unfortunately, that the majority of the spam calls and fraud calls are not abiding by those rules anyways, so it's not going to stop the majority of that activity, unfortunately.
And Nicholas, while we have you on, what would cause you folks at Valley Strong to initiate something to, without the customer contacting you directly? When would the bank step in and perhaps freeze the account or try to even initiate contact with the customer that there may be a potential issue?
Yeah, so all of your financial institutions are going to use software that monitors your account activity and looks for changes in your baseline behavior. Now, this is used for a variety of reasons. One, one of them is to report suspicious activity to the federal government and FinCEN. And the other is to see if there's anything from potential elder abuse happening or any type of money laundering, fraud scheme. And in those cases, these all happen. The software, looks at every single transaction you do and creates this baseline. And if there's anything outside of it, it pops up. Depending on the severity of that, it could result in a call from our institution to question a specific transaction and try to understand the nature of what's happening. But there's very limited things we can do as far as freezing an account. We don't have a lot of protections in California or from a federal government standpoint to just jump in and freeze your money unless there's a specific, usually law enforcement request to freeze that money.
So there could possibly be a scenario, though, where someone from the credit union would reach out and contact the customer directly, because we talked about how federal agencies, IRS, FBI, we're not going to cold call you, ask you for financial data. In this case, it's possible.
It is possible for us to call and we would question a specific transaction. We're never going to call and say, your account's been compromised, you need to provide us your PIN, or right. So it's never going to be about your account security. It would be if there was an unusual transaction. Say you've never wired money before, you've never issued a cashier's check, and suddenly a $100,000 item was done. That will likely trigger a warning that may result in someone calling you and be like, did you authorize this transaction? Which is a good thing. I would hope my institution would call me if I did something that was extremely out of my normal behavior.
And I don't know
Can I
if
add
the
something to
SBA
that, actually?
Go ahead, Joe.
So when we do see fraudulent wires going out of a customer's account and they report it to us, I think our timeline is 72 hours. So if the customer reports it to us within 72 hours, we can issue a fraud kill chain letter to the bank to have them freeze those assets in that receiving account. So if you find that someone has withdrawn a certain amount of money from your account via wire, if you can report it within 72 hours, we can get that fraud kill chain letter out to the bank so they can freeze the assets at that receiving account. Is that correct? To your understanding? Okay.
But that is just on wire transfers.
Just on
correct?
wire transfers, correct.
Wire transfers only. If you've withdrawn the money out and converted it to crypto or something like that, then a 72-hour.
Yeah, that's outside of the financial system. Essentially, it's its own financial system, the cryptocurrency world, and so there isn't any way, because cryptocurrency is essentially decentralized, or aside from certain stable coins, most cryptocurrencies are what's known as decentralized, meaning that there isn't a central issuer, there isn't a central bank that manages that cryptocurrency. So if you went and you bought 1,000 Bitcoin and you sent it to someone, there isn't anyone in the world that can go and freeze those assets. Those are controlled by whoever controls the keys that control the wallet that received those funds.
And we'll turn back to CISA. If Veronica, perhaps you could comment. And there's a recurring theme here, of course. We're talking about the phishing schemes, account takeovers, fake websites, all types of compromises. Go ahead, Veronica.
You got it. So I do want to. Oh, both sides. There you go. Okay, maybe this side works. That side doesn't. Thank you. Okay, hi, I'm Veronica Mitchell. I'm with CISA. Are you guys still awake? I know you had a pretty busy morning. So I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of the question, which was really trying to make sure you understood some of the ways scammers target you. You guys have all heard of phishing, social engineering, where they'll send you an email and say, hey, I need you to provide us with your bank account information, or they'll send you a link or an attachment and ask that you click on that link and attachment and say you're donating. You may think that you're donating funds to someone, some sob story, someone needs you to provide them with money like right away, and it's always an urgent thing. They need that information right away because they don't want you to have time to think before you act. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you need to provide money right away, outside of your children, I'm sure you guys know about that, children, grandchildren, and how that works for you. But if you've kind of verified the identity of, you don't know who the person is and they're requesting for information via your cell phone, because they may send you a text and say, I need you to provide me with your credentials because I see something on your account, or I need to have your banking account information because I see something going on, some fraudulent activity, please provide us with your bank account information or your credentials so that I can log in. We all know that that won't happen. And sometimes they'll send you a link that looks just like the legitimate link, right? We call that typo squatting, fancy word. But it's just a fake website that looks like the real website. I received one this morning. I thought for sure it was Amazon saying that I'd bought some shoes and I needed to click on the link. The only thing that didn't get me is, as I looked really, really close at the link, there was a dash, a slight dash. It was really good because there was just a slight dash between Amazon and there was a slight sort of a hyphen there, .com. And so I just happened to look at it, but it had the logo, it had everything that looked like Amazon. And so those are the things that we want to make sure that you are aware of and you're paying attention to. How many of you use like Cash App or Zelle or those types of platforms? And those are great tools for hackers too. They want you to send money to them using those types of tools because they're sort of untraceable, like our FBI, John, nice to see you, our FBI partner shared with it. Those things are difficult to recover. And it's always, I need you to provide me with this right away. And the benefit of using those tools is that there is no middleman. Just think of it that way. I always think of it like we're out in a farm somewhere and someone wants to buy something from me and I need to get it to them some kind of way. And as opposed to going to the bank, I can just use my phone and go to Zelle or Cash App or something like that and make that transaction. The bank is not involved in that. So because there is no guarantor in the middle of that, you transfer funds at your own risk. So just make sure that you validate the person that you're transferring those funds to. And let's see. Oh, another common one that we're aware of is sort of the fake jobs where people believe that they're applying for, particularly it's kind of a challenge for younger folks who are saying there are no jobs out there. And then they receive an email from someone that says, hey, I have a job available for you. Just go here and click this link. Oh yeah, we'll also need your bank account information if you can provide that. Usually a clue that something's not right. But sometimes you're eager. That's why they prey on sort of the eager sort of victim, if you will, to get them to do whatever it is they're asking. So just keep those things in mind when you're operating in the digital platform.
Okay, thank you. And in the interest of time, we're supposed to wrap up at 12:30, but I certainly want to give Mr. Flores an opportunity to give us his pearls of wisdom from the Small Business Administration, some of the items you're seeing in activity.
Sure. How many small business owners do we have here? Any small business owners? Okay. So yeah, small businesses are also a target of scams and phishing. Our biggest small businesses were affected was the COVID scams that went on during COVID economic injury disaster loans. A lot of identity theft. That's what happened back then, so we're still chasing a lot of that. But even now, we get reports of small businesses being taken advantage of through identity theft. I know a lot of that's been covered today, how to protect yourself against identity theft. But one of the biggest things that we talk about to small businesses is your employees. So, you know, you can be doing everything correct, you know, that has been recommended today, but it's the employees that you really need to watch out for and have things there that protects them also. For instance, your Wi-Fi. You know, if you have a business and you have Wi-Fi, that can be susceptible to hacking, and they can get into the system and do some things they weren't supposed to be doing. Also, using antivirus software on your computers. So once again, this all goes back to the employees knowing what they should and shouldn't be doing as far as running the business. For instance, they talked about phishing emails. They shouldn't be opening up any phishing emails, using good internet browsing practices, avoiding suspicious downloads. Once again, things that have been talked about today. But as a business owner, it's kind of your responsibility to kind of remind your employees or provide training so that they understand that this was going on, and any business can be attacked. Small businesses, if you have a small business, it hurts even more because, you're not a big business, so it hurts even more. So there's quite a few things that I know have been covered today that really are important for people to know. But when it comes to small businesses, it really comes back to your employees, and make sure your employees know all these features also.
That's some great information. I'm going to tag on to that because I work a lot with small businesses, and all these messages translate over to you as individuals as well. When he talks about educating the employees, yes, that's where many of the small business data breaches go. It could be you with children or other family members at home. You don't click on the links, you don't open the attachments, you don't put in potentially corrupted thumb drives. I was at a small business Symposium in Las Vegas a few years ago on identity theft. Just as a test, we dropped 500 thumb drives throughout the Rio. It was at the Rio Hotel to see how many folks would pick them up. And boy, they put it in. Sure, they'll plug that thumb drive right into the computer. That could lead to a malicious takeover of the computer. It could lead to an account takeover. All of you should be familiar with ransomware, right? You're all familiar with ransomware, where your computer gets locked down and then they want you to pay a ransom, usually in crypto, to unlock it so you can get to your photos. That's why when we talked earlier about having the backups and things like that, you want to have it. The thieves sometimes, when they access systems, whether it's at your personal level or the business level, they will sit there silently. I've seen it for months at a time with financial institutions, tax preparers, because then they can corrupt the backups as they're being made over a period of several weeks or months or things like that. However, if you have a backup, usually a cyber expert can decrypt that and recover it if you have a physical backup versus on the cloud or something like that. I'd also recommend for the small business owners, and in some way this is for you folks individually, you got to have a plan. You got to have two plans. You need a data prevention plan. How are you going to prevent it happening? And again, not at the small business level, at the individual level. You're not a victim yet? Well, you think you're not, because we had 158 million people were compromised in Experian alone. All your information's out there. So you should have a plan right now to protect yourself. We talked about putting the credit freeze on your profile with the 3 reporting bureaus, all the different steps you can take. Well, for small business owners, it's the same. They got to have that preventative thing, how they're going to protect the data, how they're going to have the cybersecurity, how they're going to educate employees. But then you also want to have a response plan. What is a small business owner going to do if they are going to compromised? Are they going to unplug from the internet? Are they going to shut everything down? Very possibly. Do they have a cybersecurity expert they can bring in? Do they have cyber insurance? Do they have it as a rider in the policy? Do they have it as a standalone policy? These are all things you wouldn't necessarily get that as an individual, but you would want to be looking at that. How to prevent yourself from becoming a victim, and then what you're going to do if you actually do become a victim. I don't know if we're kind of doing an open forum here, so at this point, I don't know if anyone wants to comment or we take questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can certainly comment. When you're talking about small businesses, of course, there are minimum funding as it is for these types of things, and that's why we'd like to remind you here at CISA that we do provide free services. We can perform assessments for you, strategic or technical, where we can attempt to walk you through some of best practices from a process and technology perspective. And then we can also perform what we call a penetration test of your environment. And what that means is we can try to see how would bad guys exploit your environment? What are the means in which they would get in? What weaknesses or vulnerabilities that you have on your systems that could be exploited by a cyber criminal? So you'll know so that you can provide yourself with some safeguard measures to protect your small business. So I just want to make sure you're aware of our services. We also provide sort of workshops and training as well. So if you want to have a partner shoulder to shoulder working alongside you, build up your resilience from an organization perspective, we're here to do that. We are not a regulator. We are your advisors. We work for you. So just keep us in mind if you need any assistance from a small business perspective.
Yeah, also, I just want to add on for small businesses, another thing that small businesses really need to think of is their payment systems. To secure your payment systems. Those are vulnerable also. So for instance, it would be, for a small business, it would be running your payment processing system on a different network or system than you're running doing your internet browsing and just, doing research. That would be a different computer. And yeah, you'd have two computers at a business. That's kind of a best practice, not to be doing, all you're running your business on the same computer that you do your personal browsing on. It's good to have separate computers so that if one's hacked, the other one's not hacked, but especially your secure payment processing. And also along with that is controlling physical access to that. You don't want nobody to have access to that type of information, credit card information, stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you're controlling physical access to those systems also. And then, of course, as was mentioned, backing up your data. That's important because, once again, if you do get hacked or ransomware was talked about, you have a backup of everything that you need to still run your business. So that's also important. One last thing that I also heard small businesses doing is a backup Wi-Fi. Some small businesses, they have Wi-Fi and they run their processing payments, they process payments off the Wi-Fi. What if that Wi-Fi goes down? Then they can't take credit cards. Then they're dead in the water. They can't take it, they can't take credit cards, they can't do business. So some businesses invest in having a backup Wi-Fi so that if the Wi-Fi goes down, they have a backup, some type of backup in order to still process payments. Because a lot of people use Wi-Fi these days. So once again, just a few tips as far as how to survive a hack or anything like that might shut you down. Because as a small business, you want to make sure that you're able to receive cash pay or credit card payments. If not, then everybody uses their credit cards these days, right? That's what it's all about. Not many people use cash, so you want to make sure that system is able to stay alive.
And there's one other thing, I think that's great. And there's one other thing I would like to add to that conversation is user accounts. When we talk about using two different separate systems, make sure you're using two separate accounts for your personal and your business, because that is a great opportunity for, if we have to think like hackers or criminals, that's a great opportunity. If I gain access to your personal account, I then have access to your business account. So whatever you can do, the cyber criminal would be able to do the same. So make sure you're considering using separate accounts, particularly when you're on your payment system, right? Use a separate account for that from your business perspective, and then use a different account from your personal account. So you don't want to use the same one. We call that reuse, and bad guys look for that. They assume that many people don't know to use different accounts, and so they'll figure out if I gain access to this account, your personal account, I can potentially gain access to your business account. And of course, we always recommend multi-factor authentication. And I know you guys have probably heard that until you're sick in the face as far as multi-factor authentication. We like to add to it, it's called phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. So what that means is, some people think it's easier to receive a code on their phone or a call. Those are great opportunities for bad guys. They love that because they can sort of intercept that code, and you're thinking you're going through the process correctly, but you may be receiving a code from the bad guy, or that bad guy might have the legitimate code. So we recommend something called the Authenticator app. Have you guys ever heard of that Authenticator app? Sort of the Google or Microsoft has that, and we can provide some guidance or recommendations for those as well. But Authenticator apps are better use for you because that's where you would actually go to the app to receive your code to enter into your account. It's a bit more secure than just having someone receive a pen on their phone, because we know that bad guys can gain access to that. So we try to encourage you to stay away from that if you can.
Oh my gosh, some great points there. I hate to build on this a little bit more, but first of all, we call that at the IRS commingling of funds with the business and individuals. Anytime I used to teach record keeping for businesses. That's chapter 1. Never commingle your business funds with your individual. Number 2, we brought up the issue of Wi-Fi. So for everybody here, I went to a friend of mine's house back in Southwest Washington a few weeks ago. He had his Comcast router on the dining room table. We all have the router at home, right? Comes with the default password. It's on the bottom of the router. Someone could come over and actually get it. You want to change all your default passwords. With businesses, we see it more when they buy fax machines and scanners and things like that. There's default passwords. You have to remove those. But you should all have changed the default password on your router. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know this, but you can actually change the range at what it's broadcasting at. So we lived in a very tight community up there. So you could pick up our Wi-Fi from 200 yards down the street. You could have hackers parked down there trying to hack into your Wi-Fi. You can reduce that range. My son changed the name on our Wi-Fi from my name. He's a prankster, but he'd always be putting up like FBI surveillance, no offense, or NSA or something like that. But you can take those little steps to protect your Wi-Fi since we brought that up. The authenticator apps are very important because I've seen email account takeovers, especially at businesses, which means if a thief does get inside your system, they can redirect the emails. They can be sending emails to people. They can look at your distribution list, your points of contact, send them emails, and when the emails come back, they can redirect them so that the person who actually owns the account doesn't see them. That's why using the Authenticator app is very important because that 6-digit or 8-digit multi-factor authentication code could be going there. Since I'm from the IRS, I probably should give a 1-minute plug for taxes, but first I want to defer. Do you have anything for Valley Strong?
Yeah, no, our online and mobile banking supports MFA, including authenticator apps. Not to beat a broken record, but it is the safest way to access your online and mobile banking.
And then I would add, if you don't mind, Vince,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd love to add a couple of other just tips and tricks for your banking account information. Just make sure you set up account alerts where you receive an alert if someone logs into your account from an unknown location. I love that feature sometimes, and also sometimes banks, depending on your banks or your credit union, they'll let you know, hey, someone logged into your account from this particular IP address, and if it's not where you are and you didn't log in, that may be a great indication that your account may have been compromised. Also, make sure you're monitoring your account regularly, right? Not just receive an alert. I know I'm talking to people who already know this, but just make sure you're monitoring your account, looking for suspicious activities, because things can hide in the details, right, if you're not aggressively monitoring that. And then protect that sensitive information, like your shared documents. When we're home, we don't think to do that, but if you have documents that are sensitive in nature, make sure you have those, we like to say, in a safe place where they're not readily accessible to anyone who visits your home, whether that's someone from a service that you just, I need a plumber, some random plumber, and you have your information scattered around. Make sure you're protecting that data. And as it relates to your bank accounts and your transactions, always shred those papers if you're still getting paper bills or paper statements. Make sure you're shredding that information. Don't just toss it, because bad guys will also, they do have what we call dumpster diving, where they look into, like, literally dumpsters and just trying to find this information and gain access to what does your history look like. What things are you most susceptible to doing? Oh, okay, I see this person likes Trader Joe's. I'm gonna send them some emails from Trader Joe's saying, hey, if you click this link, you can receive a discount for 25% at Trader Joe's. Click here. And you think you're clicking on Trader Joe's, but you potentially could be clicking what we call that fake website, going to that typo squatting site to provide them with your credentials, and then they have access to your data. So just keep those common things in mind. And we didn't talk about social media, but of course social media is a great place for bad guys to gain access, learn more about you that they can use against you. whether that's your role, your responsibilities, your activities. Oh, I see they're not going to be home around this time because they're showing pictures because they're on vacation. I'm going to go to their house, right? So be careful and cognizant of that when you're posting those types of things.
Those are all great points, Veronica. I personally love the banking alerts. Every transaction, I get a little text about it. Can't go wrong with that. The other, I'll turn it back over to our colleague, Mr. Flores at SBA, but he had previously mentioned the physical security versus the cybersecurity. There are multiple components to this. You folks have been bombarded with a wealth of information. What you take from here is really going to be up to each and every one of you on how you're going to protect yourselves, your family members, share the information. But did you have any closing comments from SBA or things you'd like to add on to that?
No, well, I guess the last thing would be, it's probably been talked about reporting. So if you are a victim of any type of hack or identity theft, please be sure to report it to your local authorities. If it's, first start with your locals, and then if obviously if it has to do with anybody else, the state level or the federal level, you can always report it to the different agencies that you're dealing with, especially with the SBA as a small business. If you do get an email saying that, hey, we'll give you a $10,000 loan, all you have to do is give us $1,000 and we'll give you even a $100,000 loan. We'll give you a $100,000 loan. All you have to do is send us $1,000 and we're going to help you get this. Well, you can say, was this true or not? And you can just contact the SBA and say, hey, SBA, I got this email. Is this true? We get these calls all the time, so it's not, don't feel that you're bothering us. It's really something that we do. And so once again, just report it. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is. So please report it as soon as you can. That's all I have.
No, great points. And we talked about filing the police report, potentially filing FTC report, IRS, or with other agencies, et cetera. And I will just build on to the small business component. All businesses have requirements under federal law to safeguard customer data and their employees' data. We could go to the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, the Sarbanes-Oxley, FTC has all types of regulations. There's a whole laundry list of them. That's why periodically when they experience breaches, you receive notifications. Some of your information may be compromised, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for the most part, they all do try their best really to do it. But we're living in, I don't even know how to describe it. My son has picked up motorcycle riding. I used to ride a long time ago, and I told him a couple weeks ago, I said, you have to ride like everybody on the highway and on roads is trying to kill you, because they are. And for all of you, identity theft is all of you have a bullseye on you. You better protect yourselves. And we've imparted a lot of information here, but I want to turn it over to John. Is it John, real quick? John has been here all morning. You've been like the staple of the FBI. Some closing comments, John?
Just to reiterate what we talked about today. Just to reiterate what we spoke about today, I think, at least as it relates to businesses, if you're going to be a victim of a cyber breach, it's likely, at least in our AOR in Kern County, what we've seen that for the most part, it's going to be either ransomware or business email compromise. Those are the two types of breaches that we've seen. Ransomware is especially bad because they don't just lock up your system so you can't operate, but they also will exfiltrate your data and they'll hold that for ransom. And they will ask you, like, if you don't pay us, we're going to release all this personal information, including customer data, on the open internet. So make sure you invest into some cybersecurity. And if there's one thing I want to leave you with, if you get a call from someone, and maybe it's a bank or it's an institution of some type, and they are trying to get you to convert your assets to cryptocurrency, hang up the phone, end that communication. If they're trying to get you to communicate on a secured messaging application, it's fraud, or it's some type of fraud. So just remember those few things: cryptocurrency and crypto messaging applications, and be wary of people who communicate with you via social media. We can be anyone we want to be online. So whoever you're communicating with, you can never be sure that they are the person that you think they are.
All right, thanks, John.
And I'll add, Vincent, if you don't mind, I'd like to add one thing specific to that. I'd like you to also remember, like, the people that you send your cell phone to, that cell phone has so much information a person can gather about you. Just from your cell phone number, I can figure out where you live, your credit history, your marital status, your children. I can figure out your history of where you lived in the past. I can also figure out your employment history just from your cell phone number. That's the era we're living in. So I always like to caution people when you're giving out your cell phone number to make sure that person really needs your cell phone number. We also have something where you can go to Google, I said Google, but you can go to other locations and receive another number, like a temporary number, to obfuscate your personal cell phone number, so that people won't have all of that information when they gain access to your cell phone number. I like to also remind our younger people of this, particularly of the dating age, right? Because you don't know, you're trying to get to know someone. And just by giving them your cell phone number, they can learn a lot about you. So please, please, please educate your younger generations that are in your realm about, be careful when you're giving out your cell phone numbers. There are sites that you can go to. BeenVerified.com is one. Enter in your cell phone number and just see like the information that comes up on you. Or Intellis, that's another site you can look up and just type in your cell phone number and just take a look of the information that a person can figure out from you. And I always tell people, just like you can figure out that information on someone, they can actually do the same to you. So be very cognizant of that.
Thank you. And just in closing here, I know we're a couple minutes over. A lot of it comes back down to everything we're coming back to is awareness, how to spot identity theft. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Anytime money is coming out of your account, it's suspect. I listened to John speak about the romance schemes. I still don't know how to convince my friend's mother that she's not really talking to Liam Neeson, but since they sent me out here to come down here, talk about tax-related identity theft. Everybody got another hour? No, here's how it works. We work tax-related identity theft from two standpoints, essentially. Number one is we at the IRS identify it and notify you that you're probably a victim of identity theft, okay? That's a different scenario. We're using our internal systems. We contact you with a letter. We're going to have you validate your identity. We'll very possibly ask you to come into our walk-in. It's called Taxpayer Assistance Center, our walk-in office, and validate your identity in person. Or you find out you're a victim of tax-related identity theft yourself because you try to file your tax return next year and it's rejected because your Social Security number's already been used. And guess what? If your Social Security number's been used on a tax return, it's not just your SSN. We validate it with your name, your date of birth, a bunch of other information, and we cross-reference it with your employers, prior employers. So if we've accepted a return, it means whoever filed that return under your name and number also has a lot of other information about you, and they're trying to fake a return through the system. You have to file an IRS identity theft affidavit. And I'll just tell you right now, in the year you become a victim, in the year you find out, let's say it was this past year, you file in January, returns rejected, you file the affidavit, you go through all those different aspects. Number one, I'm going to tell you at the IRS, it normally in the past would take us about 180 days to resolve on average one of those cases. Right now, it's running a year to a year and a half, maybe shorter, maybe longer. It all depends on the facts and circumstances of each case. Because once we have someone who's identified as a victim of tax-related identity theft, we lock down their account at that point moving forward. And we're going to take every step we have to in coordination with other agencies many times. With businesses, we work with SBA regularly on the Paycheck Protection Program, all those COVID programs. But we're going to lock down that account. No money's going to go out on that until we have 100% validation that you are who you are. We're going to put you in something called the Identity Protection Program. You're going to have a 6-digit number that's assigned to you that's going to have to go on your tax return every year. If you're married, your spouse is going to get a separate 6-digit number. If the children are victims, their information's been compromised, they're going to get a number. But we're going to hold it for that first year we identify it. Once we have resolved the identity theft for that particular year, we will make you whole again. Even if large refunds have gone out, you will get the correct amount of refund you're entitled to, or we'll correct the numbers, your adjusted gross income, your taxable income, all that will be made right. But we're going to lock it down so that from that point moving forward, you will not be a victim again of tax-related identity theft. I will say when we identify it, we'll be sending you a letter. And then every year you will get a letter with that unique code. Or you can go to irs.gov, create an online account, and you can always view it there. Once you go through the security protocol, we talked about ID.me and registering to get access to government accounts, whether it's IRS, SSA, state, local, colleges, et cetera. For people, if you want to voluntarily opt in, you can go to irs.gov, create an account, and put in, it's called Get an IP PIN, Identity Protection Personal Identification Number. You can voluntarily opt in, but people who opt in, they create the account, they opt in, that's how they protect fraudulent tax returns from coming in. But we don't send them a physical letter every year. They have to log into the account because they initiate it, where if we identify it and we send it to you, we will send that person a letter every year. And it does create other problems. I had a call yesterday from someone. They had moved twice. They're trying to change their address on IRS records. They can't do it because they've moved. And you know, if you're a victim of identity theft and you say, oh, here's my new address, we're not just going to start sending it there. We're going to say, oh, let's send something to the old address. Let's go through the postal service. Let's check and make sure that it's not thieves trying to change the address, if that makes sense. So it can be complex, but bear with us. And with that, I'd like to thank the Congressman, all his staff, our panel members for coming down today. And yeah, there's a bullseye on each and every one of you, so be careful out there, folks. And I'll be happy to stick around if anyone has questions or things like that, but I think you've had a long morning.